take. Illinois wins 8+ games this year, Chris. What do you think, you crazy son of a buck?
I have gotten some debates recently with some of my friends. I got some Iowa friends out there. I got some I can't barely even address them. Some Ohio State fans that are my friends, which is tough. And this Illinois thing got brought up a lot recently, Christian. This is why I wanted to talk about these guys anyway. I am high on Illinois this year, man. I'm going to tell you why. Christian. I want you to sit back. I want you to listen once in your life to me. Defense was number one in the nation last year, right? And I know we're not talking about last year, but they only gave up 12.8 points per game, Christian, last year. That was better than your Georgia Bulldogs, by the way. Now, are they better than the Georgia Bulldogs? No, that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. No, don't get all excited over there. But I'm going to say this. I like Brett Bielema, dude. He was at Wisconsin. He went over to Arkansas, took the money, found out the SEC is probably the toughest conference in America. In his terms, got out of there, went to Illinois, dude. He had their best season last year in like 11 years at Illinois. And I believe they went 8-5 last year, which was huge for them. Now they lose, what the hell is that? Brown, the running back. He went to the NFL.
Yeah,
he was like
Chase Brown.
There you go, Chase Brown. Fourth or fifth leading rusher in the country last year. Anybody knows anything about Brett Bielema, he likes the massive offensive lineman going to pound the football. I mean, that's just what the guy does. He relies on the defense. I don't think a thing changes this year. You know, they got a few pieces to fill. They got a new quarterback coming in this year. If you look at Illinois, though, and like I said, I've had some heated discussions about Illinois. People are telling me, again, I'll bring up Vegas has got them at 5.5, 6 wins. They're not going to be near as good. It was a fluke year for Bielema. Bullshit. I don't think that at all. If you look at their schedule, their toughest games are Penn State, Nebraska, Wisconsin, and Maryland. I'm throwing Nebraska in there. Yes, I am Chris Vaca. I am from Nebraska. I'm throwing Nebraska in there. But they don't have to play Ohio State or Michigan. Penn State's obviously going to be really, really good this year. We know that. Wisconsin's got a new coach. Nebraska's got a new coach. Minnesota is one of those teams that a little bit of a duplicate of an Illinois type of team. They play smash mouth football up there. I have them penciled in, and I did breakdowns on this several times, Christian. I have them at 8 wins this year. I really do. I think they get there. I know you're going to laugh at me. You're going to call me a stooge. You're going to call me a Big Ten homer. You're going to do whatever you have to, but I do this year. I think Illinois is going to be a decent football team. I'm not saying they're going to win, the West over here, but I think that they're going to have a solid season. I think it's going to be relatively tough for anybody that comes and plays them this year. And it's Brett Bielema, man. I mean, you know what he's going to do. I don't think he's going to change the world or light the world on fire. And, all of a sudden now they're going to come in and run an air raid style of offense or run a spread or anything. Big Ten football, Chris, you've watched enough now to know that a lot of Big Ten teams like to run the ball. I think they're going to be ugly games. Like last year, Illinois had some ugly wins. But, hey, at the end of the year, your record is what it says you are. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, and I kind of told you what I thought about this before we got on air. What did I say to you, Chris?
You said I'm a stooge.
Well, that's what you get for believing in me. Listen, this is not a hot take. This is probably one of the coldest takes we've put on here yet. I had to get him riled up. Had to get him going. Chris, they bring in a sophomore, former 4-star quarterback in Luke Altmaier, who played at Ole Miss. Okay, so on paper, they have a decent quarterback. But I'm going to go a little step further than this here. In some research that I could put together on this kid, all right, he lit it up in the spring. A good defense, like you said. It was a good defense that he lit up. They didn't have a game due to bad weather, but he did great from what I've been told. Also, he was Matt Corral's backup as a true freshman and even pushed Jackson Dart last year for the starting job at Ole Miss. Now, he didn't win it, right? But he pushed an SEC caliber fringe competitor with the old Lane train for playing time. You touched on it, Chris. Brett Bielema can definitely coach. We know that. Here's a stat for you, by the way. Chris, in 9 seasons as a Big Ten coach, split between Illinois and Wisconsin, Bielema has only not won 8+ games twice. One of those was his first year at Illinois, which I don't know anybody that could have won 8+ games one year taking over Illinois.
He inherited a team, I think, that won 2 games the year before under, I think it was Lovie Smith, if I'm not mistaken. They were bad.
Yeah. So you touched on it. They do lose out on Chase Brown, but they do get a good bit of production back in that wide receiver room, and they upgrade in the quarterback room as far as I'm concerned. So defensively, they lose out on coordinator Ryan Walters. He's now the coach over at Purdue, but they're one of the best in the country last year, and they get back a ton in the front seven. Let's just be honest here. Bielema's going to have them ready to play on both sides of the ball. With that, I know this is a really interesting thing, and I like to pull this up here. I'm going to bring up their schedule right here for you, and we're going to take a look at it. Chris, Toledo, that's a win. Kansas, I think it's a tough game, but give me Illinois in that game.
Thank you.
Or Illinois. Yeah, Illinois. I think I'm saying that right. Anyways, Penn State, that's a tough one. I think they could pull it off. If they play that game 10 times, maybe twice they'll pull it off. It just depends what happens. Some weird fluky stuff might happen. Let's just say they lose that game, though, for this purposes. We've already pissed off the Penn State fans plenty in the last couple of weeks.
No offense. Can I add real quick? Penn State fans, they got something coming from me and Christian, by the way.
Yeah.
Here, shortly. Anyway,
Yeah. So that's one loss. Florida Atlantic, not worried about it. Isn't that where old Thompson ended up, if I'm not mistaken?
Casey's down there, baby.
But I still like Illinois in that game. Purdue, again, Ryan Walters has taken over for them. Still give me Illinois. Nebraska, I'm going to take Nebraska in that game. I like what Matt Rule and Nebraska's doing. Half the channel here, we really got to pull for the Skurs. So, again, give me Nebraska. So that's 2 losses. Maryland, they're going to be a tough team with the younger Tagovailoa in at quarterback. I like their coach. I like what they do, but I really still think that they can beat Maryland. Wisconsin, we took a lot of shit from Wisconsin fans, so it just depends what happens. If Wisconsin can move the ball and they can figure out an identity, and this Mordecai kid is the truth like we keep being told he is, I personally don't think so. Do I think he might be a little better than Graham Mertz? Maybe, possibly. It's a very real possibility.
Much better. Get it right.
What elite quarterback that threw 4 interceptions in a spring game?
Christian Hunt.
I threw 4 touchdowns, baby. Dial it in. Dial it in.
You've never been dialed in other than the scale, and it's usually telling you're overweight. But here we are.
Well, we don't count that around here at this household, by God.
Okay.
So, but let's just say for all intents and purposes that they lose that game against Wisconsin, right? Okay. Let's say they lose it. They could. To me, I think this schedule they could. I'm not saying they're going to go undefeated, but I am saying they could beat Wisconsin if the offense doesn't play right and Luke Altmaier looks good. Minnesota, you're pretty high on them. You're not super high on them, but you think that they can kind of shock some stuff.
I do.
To me, I think that they can beat Minnesota. That's a given. I think Indiana, that's definitely a given. Yeah. Iowa, that's another tough game. I'll give them an Iowa upset. And I'm going to give them an Iowa upset because I think Illinois is a good enough team to upset one of these teams we just mentioned between Penn State, Nebraska, Wisconsin, or Iowa. I think they will absolutely win one of those games.
I'm not disagreeing with you there. Not at all.
Northwestern, come on, man. Come on, man.
Yeah, there's some problems down there. Holy shit.
That's 3 losses in 12 games. They're going to win 9 games this year.
Love it. Wow. And I thought when you were bringing this up, the way you approached me after I gave my prediction, you said this was the coldest take you had done. I thought you were going to be like, 5-6 wins. I honestly did at first. That's what I thought you were going with, Christian. So you surprised me there. Because like I said, well, guys, we don't consult any of this shit before we do it. But I don't know. Chat's telling me 6-6. We got Crixus in there. We got Children of the Corn saying 6 wins. Man, damn, man. That's what I said. Vegas got them at 6. Like, I think I'm crazy, but every time I break down their schedule, I'm like, I don't think Illinois is a bad football team. I don't mean bad as like 6 wins, but they're not. Brett Bielema, you guys got to watch Brett Bielema play a little bit more, or coach, man. I know it was Wisconsin where he was at before, where he got a lot of those wins that Christian was talking about in good seasons, but he's duplicating that at Illinois. He's going to run the fucking football, and he's going to slam it down your throat. And it's not going to be pretty, Christian. It's not going to be a game where you're not going to see a game, 42-38. That's not going to happen. It'll be ugly. It'll be 21-17 or ball control. That's just, and they don't beat themselves either. That's another thing I like about Illinois in his play styles. Like they just don't turn the ball over a ton. Minnesota's kind of in that way too. And that's where I think there's a lot of these teams middle of the pack on this side of the conference with Nebraska, where I threw Nebraska in there. Iowa's the same type of school. Their offense is definitely going to be better this year than it was last year. There's a lot of who's to say Illinois can't go out there and knock off a Wisconsin, or maybe pull a crazy one against Penn State, or I think they can beat Nebraska, definitely, that's for sure. But or beat an Iowa.